So we're looking at this beginning of the divide between northern states and southern states. Northern states, again, were more nationalistic, and they were anti-slavery as well. So northern states were states where slavery was not allowed, and also they were working to try and bring an end to slavery in Congress. Because remember, slavery was something that was unfortunately enabled by the Constitution and enabled by the American government in the 19th century. And so a lot of these northern states that you see in the background here that are blue are the states that were abolitionist states trying to bring about a final legal end to the practice of slavery in this country, something that took far too long to happen. Should never have happened in the first place. So to help with the economy, the federal government placed a tariff or a tax on imports from outside countries. So again, imports are things that you bring in that you're buying that are made outside of the United States of America. So in other words, this tariff or this tax on imported goods would cost people more money to buy goods from outside of the United States. Well, why does that matter? Because some people are saying, well, America manufactures some of their own goods. That's true. But this really hurt the southern states, especially the state of South Carolina, because they were purchasing, or they were doing a lot of trade with European countries. And so when you do trade, that not only means that you're buying from Europe, but you're also selling some of your goods to Europe. So Europe relied heavily on the southern cotton industry, so that trade was going back and forth. And so southern states felt that this tariff was illegal and felt that they should be able to nullify, there's that word again, or reject this tariff. So tariff is one of our vocab words. It's a tax on foreign goods. Nullify means to basically say, we're going to ignore this rule, this law that's made by the government. So the question begs, do states have the right to determine which federal laws they're going to follow within their state borders? Southern states felt yes, a state should have the responsibility of determining whether a federal law makes sense for them or whether it doesn't make sense for them. Whereas other nationalists and many northerners said, if it's a federal law, it's a federal law for a reason, and everybody needs to follow that law. Think about our world today if people could just pick and choose which laws they wanted to follow and which ones they wanted to ignore. So we start to see a difference of opinion between two main players. One was John Calhoun, this handsome dude on the left, who, happy looking guy, right? He felt that states should have the right to nullify. So being from the state of South Carolina, and Calhoun also, by the way, was the vice president to Andrew Jackson. And because of this nullification issue, there gets to be a big resentment or a divide between President Andrew Jackson and Vice President John Calhoun. So Calhoun and many southern states believe that states have the right to nullify or cancel a federal law if they felt it was unconstitutional. And Calhoun and others who supported him felt that states should work to limit the power of the federal government. So again, it's kind of like that anti-federalist Democratic Republican view of a limited hands-off federal government. Daniel Webster, this gentleman on the right, who was from the state of Vermont, and he was also served in Massachusetts at one point, he felt that states must follow federal laws. So Webster and many northern states believe that states shouldn't be able to nullify federal laws. Remember, we said northerners say no on nullification because that's the nationalistic thing to do. You're doing what's best for the nation. Webster and other northern supporters felt that the nation would fall apart if states or individuals had the power to just reject or ignore or cancel any federal law anytime they wanted to. So when President Andrew Jackson surprisingly felt and worked to bring more power to the federal government, and this is surprising because Jackson himself was a Democrat or a Democratic Republican at that time, and at that point, this was a group that kind of wanted to limit the power of the federal government, but being the head of the federal government, being the head of the nation, our commander-in-chief, our president, he felt that we needed to do more to make the federal government stronger. So the problem that existed was that the country needed to become more united and promote nationalism instead of sectionalism. But southern states were not seeing it that way and were feeling neglected that the federal government was doing more to help the northern abolitionist anti-slavery states and the manufacturing states, the industrial states, and not as much to help the agrarian, agricultural, farming states of the South, where they were in favor of certain practices. So Southern states, being a very proud group of states and a tad bit stubborn, started to think about seceding or separating from the Union. So this is really the point where our nation starts to fracture and we start heading towards this civil war, which we're going to get into toward the end of the year. All right. So again, a civil war is anytime a group divides and basically they go to war, they start to fight against one another. So neighbors fighting against neighbors, country people fighting against their own country people. That's what we are implying with this civil war.